What happens when you begin this work of shadow integration? The transformation is profound, though rarely dramatic in the way our culture conditions us to expect. You don't become a dark person, you become a whole person. With integration comes authentic power. The energy you once spent maintaining the dam against your shadow becomes available for creating the life you actually want. The exhaustion that comes from constantly presenting a partial self begins to lift. In its place arises a quiet confidence born of self-knowledge and self-acceptance. You develop unshakable boundaries. When you've integrated your healthy selfishness and assertiveness, no becomes a complete sentence, unaccompanied by guilt or excessive explanation. You can honor others' needs without abandoning your own, because you no longer view these as mutually exclusive. Paradoxically, true compassion deepens. By accepting your own shadow aspects, you develop genuine empathy for the struggles and shadow aspects of others. Your judgments soften. Your need to fix or rescue diminishes. In its place grows a capacity to witness others in their wholeness, both light and dark, without the need to change them or be changed by them. Resilience strengthens. You're no longer terrified of your own negative emotions or trying to outrun them. Instead, you see them as valuable signals providing important information. Sadness tells you what you care about. Anger shows you where your boundaries have been crossed. Fear points to what you value and need to protect. Remember Elena from the beginning of our journey? A year after beginning her shadow work, she's still kind and compassionate, perhaps even more so, but not at her own expense. She's left the draining friendship that was fueling her resentment. She started a painting class she'd put off for years, reconnecting with her creative expression. Most importantly, she now recognizes anger as a clean, useful signal to protect her energy, not as a toxic, simmering resentment that makes her question her goodness. She feels more alive and more herself than she has in years, capable of genuine connection because she's no longer hiding half of who she is. The greatest danger for the empath isn't the existence of their shadow, it's the pretense that they don't have one. Embracing your shadow isn't a betrayal of your light. It is the very thing that makes your light authentic, sustainable, and truly powerful. The path to becoming a beacon for others begins by bravely illuminating the entirety of yourself, both the parts you've always shown the world and those you've kept hidden in darkness. In that complete illumination lies true freedom and the capacity for love that embraces all of what makes us human. There's a particular kind of exhaustion that haunts the modern world. It's not the simple, honest fatigue that comes after a day of hard labor. It's not the weariness that a good night's sleep can wash away. No, this is a deeper fatigue, a dull ache behind the eyes, a leaden weight in the soul. It's the feeling of being perpetually drained, even when you haven't done anything particularly strenuous. It's the exhaustion that coffee can't fix and a vacation can only temporarily postpone, that we often look for the source of this drain in the usual places: our demanding jobs, our busy schedules, our lack of sleep. We try to patch the leaks with productivity hacks, wellness trends, and the promise of the next weekend. But what if the leak isn't on the deck of the ship, where we can see it? What if our vessel is taking on water from a hidden breach deep below the waterline, in a place we never thought to look? Over a century ago, the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung, a man who we might call a master cartographer of the soul, suggested exactly this. He understood that our most profound and persistent energy drains don't come from our external circumstances, but from our internal world. He knew that the wars we fight within ourselves are far more exhausting than any battle we face outside. Jung spoke of something he called libido. Now, when we hear that word, we immediately think of Freud and sexual desire. But for Jung, libido was a much grander concept. It was psychic energy itself, the very current of life that flows through us. It is the energy that fuels our motivation, our creativity, our passions, and our fundamental will to live. When this energy flows freely, we feel vital, engaged, and alive. But when it is blocked, diverted, or leaked away, we feel the soul-deep exhaustion so many of us know so well. Today, we're going on a journey into the uncharted territory of the psyche. We will move beyond the pop psychology cliches and uncover three of the most profound, hidden places where our psychic energy is being drained, according to Jung's Untold wisdom. We will find the leaks below the waterline. And more importantly, we will discover how to seal them, not just to conserve our energy, but to reclaim the vibrant, whole life that is our birthright. Our first hidden drain is perhaps the most deceptive because it masquerades as our greatest strength. It is the energy we lose servicing a flawless, but ultimately suffocating version of ourselves. Jung called this structure the persona. The word persona comes from the Latin for the masks worn by actors in ancient Greek theater. It was the tool they used to project a specific character to the audience. And in our lives, the persona serves a similar and very necessary function. It is our social mask, our psychological interface with the outside world. You have a persona for your job, the competent professional. You have another for your family, the caring son or dutiful daughter. You have one for your friends and another for strangers. It is the ego's diplomat, skillfully navigating the complex demands of society. The persona is not an enemy. It is a vital tool for functioning in a collective. It allows for politeness, for cooperation, for the smooth running of civilization. The problem is not that we have a persona. The problem and the colossal energy drain begins when we forget that we are wearing one. It occurs through a process Jung called over-identification, which is when the mask fuses to the face. The role we play becomes the person we believe we are. Imagine an actor who plays the part of a stoic, infallible king. On stage, he is magnificent. But after the show, he refuses to take off the heavy crown and the royal robes. He goes home and speaks to his family in formal decrees. He eats his dinner with a regal stiffness. He sleeps with the weight of the crown pressing into his pillow. Can you feel the immense, constant effort this would require? The sheer exhaustion of never being able to relax, to be vulnerable, to be simply human? He is spending every ounce of his energy upholding a fiction, and in doing so, his true self, the person beneath the costume, begins to wither from neglect. This is the psychological reality for so many of us in the modern world. Our culture, amplified by the endless performance of social media and the demands of professional branding, has become a grand stage. We curate our lives, projecting an image of success, happiness, and unwavering competence. We build a persona of the perfect employee, the ideal parent, the enlightened spiritual seeker, or the adventurous globetrotter. We filter out our doubts, our fears, our messy, contradictory, and beautifully imperfect realities. And the energy cost is staggering. It is the exhaustion of constantly monitoring yourself, of worrying that the mask might slip and someone might see the real you. It's the drain of pretending to have all the answers at work when you feel uncertain. It's the effort of maintaining a smile at a party when you feel hollow inside. Every moment spent in this state of over-identification is a moment you are holding a heavy psychological weight. We are performing our lives instead of living them. And performance is, by its very nature, exhausting. The applause we get, the likes, the promotions, the praise, feels good for a moment, but it doesn't nourish the soul. It only reinforces the need to keep the performance going. So, how do we reclaim this vast reservoir of lost energy? The Jungian solution is not to violently rip off the mask and live in a state of raw, unfiltered impulse. That would make life in society impossible. The solution is to create a conscious relationship with the persona. It is to know, with absolute certainty, when you are wearing the mask and who you are when you take it off. This begins with the simple, courageous act of acknowledging the gap between your public self and your private self. It's about admitting, if only to yourself at first, the person I am on my LinkedIn profile is not the entirety of who I am. The cheerful face I show the world doesn't always match the landscape inside. The next step is to consciously carve out time and space where the persona is not required. This is your sanctuary. It could be time spent in nature, in journaling, in a hobby that has no goal other than your own enjoyment, or in conversation with a trusted friend with whom you don't have to pretend. In these moments, you allow yourself to be messy, uncertain, and gloriously imperfect. You let the actor take off the costume and simply be. Finally, the most powerful act is to begin strategically bringing more of your authentic self into the world. This is the courage to be vulnerable. It's the courage to say, I don't know, in a meeting. It's the courage to admit you're having a hard day. It's the courage to share an opinion that isn't perfectly curated. Each time you do this, you will find something remarkable happens. The act of authenticity doesn't drain your energy, it liberates it. You close the gap between who you are and who you pretend to be, and all the energy you were using to maintain that gap comes flooding back into your life. You stop performing and you start living. If our first energy drain comes from what we show the world, our second comes from what we hide from ourselves. This is the vast, dark continent within our own psyche that Jung famously called the shadow. Now, the word shadow has sinister connotations, and this has led to a great misunderstanding of the concept. The shadow is not, as many believe, a cellar full of evil or a monster to be slain. In Jungian thought, the shadow is far more neutral and far more profound. It is quite simply the unknown or disowned part of our personality. It is the repository for everything about ourselves that we have repressed because it was deemed unacceptable, inconvenient, or shameful by our family, our culture, and most importantly, by our own conscious ego. What goes into this psychological sack we drag behind us? It could be negative traits, certainly, our greed, our anger, our envy, our selfishness. But it also contains a wealth of positive and vital qualities. It might be your untamed creativity that was dismissed as impractical. It might be your fierce ambition that was shamed as unbecoming. It might be your vulnerability that was seen as weakness, or your righteous anger that was labeled as hysterical. The shadow contains all the parts of you that didn't fit into the neat, tidy box of your persona. And here lies the second great, hidden energy drain. The shadow siphons our life force in two powerful ways. The first is through repression. The sheer, constant, unconscious effort required to keep these parts of ourselves hidden is profoundly exhausting. Jung's successor, Robert A. Johnson, used a perfect metaphor. It is like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. You can do it, but it takes immense and continuous pressure. The moment you lose focus, the ball shoots to the surface with explosive force. We spend a colossal amount of our psychic energy holding down our own vitality, our own potential, our own completeness. This internal policing, this constant vigilance against our own nature, creates a state of chronic, low-grade tension that slowly bleeds us dry. The second, and perhaps more draining, mechanism is projection. When we fail to see a part of ourselves, we are doomed to see it everywhere else. The psyche seeks wholeness, and if we won't acknowledge our own disowned qualities internally, the unconscious will project them outward onto other people. We see our own unacknowledged shadow in the faces of those around us. Let me tell you a story. Consider a man named Arthur. Arthur's persona is that of a calm, reasonable, and deeply kind person. He prides himself on never getting angry, but he lives in a state of constant irritation with the world. He is infuriated by the aggressive driver who cuts him off in traffic. He is endlessly annoyed by his incompetent colleague who is too ambitious and loud in meetings. He judges his neighbor for being lazy. Arthur doesn't realize that the aggression, the ambition, and the laziness he sees everywhere else are disowned parts of his own shadow. The aggressive driver is carrying his repressed anger. The ambitious colleague is living out his disowned drive to succeed. He is fighting a constant, exhausting war with the external world, but the battle is actually with himself. All the energy he spends in judgment, in anger and righteous indignation, is energy drained from his own system, fueling a pointless external conflict that can never be won because its origins are internal. So, what is the path to reclaiming this energy? It is the courageous process Jungians call shadow work. The goal is not to eliminate the shadow. That would be to mutilate the soul, but to integrate it. It is to turn and face the parts of ourselves we have disowned, and to do so with curiosity and compassion, not judgment. This work begins by noticing our strong emotional reactions and projections. When someone infuriates you, when you feel an intense, irrational dislike or a surge of self-righteous judgment, ask a brave question. What in this person is also in me that I have refused to see? This is not to excuse others' behavior, but to use your own reactions as a mirror for your own soul. Feeding the shadow, as it's sometimes called, means finding healthy, conscious expressions for these powerful, repressed energies. If you have repressed your aggression, you don't start fights. You channel that fire into a competitive sport or into defending a cause you believe in. If you have disowned your ambition, you don't become ruthless. You give yourself permission to start that creative project you've been dreaming of. You bring the monster out of the cellar and into the light, only to discover that it was not a monster at all, but a vital part of your own strength, a source of untamed power. This is what Jung meant when he said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." By owning our shadow, we withdraw our projections. We stop fighting the world. We stop the exhausting internal civil war of oppression. The beach ball is allowed to surface, and we realize we can swim with it. And all the energy we were wasting holding it down and fighting its reflection in others comes rushing back to us, enriching our lives with a newfound depth, authenticity, and a formidable sense of wholeness. We have explored the energy drained by the face we show the world and the parts we hide from ourselves. Now we arrive at the third, and perhaps the most subtle and profound of the hidden drains. This is the exhaustion that comes not from a conflict with society or with our hidden parts, but from a conflict with our own deepest potential. It is the energy we lose by resisting the person we are meant to become. In Jung's model of the psyche, the ego is the center of our conscious awareness, the I we think we are. But there's a much larger, organizing center to our personality, which Jung called the self. The self is the totality of our being, conscious and unconscious. It represents our fullest potential, our unique blueprint for wholeness. You could think of it as your psychological destiny, the acorn that contains the blueprint for the mighty oak tree you are capable of becoming. The process of becoming that oak tree is what Jung called individuation. It is the lifelong journey of becoming more and more fully ourselves. The third great energy drain occurs when our conscious ego actively or passively resists this process. It's the exhaustion of living a life that is fundamentally out of alignment with your soul's purpose. This drain manifests in two classic ways. The first is what Jungian analyst Marie-Louise von Franz called the puer aeternus, or the eternal youth complex. This is the archetype of the person who lives in a state of provisionality, refusing to commit to the realities of adult life. They might drift from job to job, relationship to relationship, or passion to passion, always believing that something better is just around the corner. They live in the realm of infinite potential, but never actualize any of it. They are terrified of making a choice, because choosing one path means sacrificing all others. This what-if state, this refusal to land the plane, is utterly paralyzing. It seems like freedom, but it is a prison of possibility. An immense amount of psychic energy is consumed simply keeping all options open, in the anxiety of never choosing, and in the quiet despair of a life that never truly begins. The second manifestation is quieter, but just as draining. It's the experience of ignoring the call. This is a persistent low-grade depression or a nagging feeling of meaninglessness that pervades a life that is, by all external measures, successful. It's the lawyer who secretly dreams of being a carpenter, the accountant who longs to write poetry. It's the feeling that you are living someone else's life, a life chosen for you by your parents, by society, or by your own fear. Your ego has built a safe, respectable, and stable life. but it has done so by ignoring the deeper whispers of the self. This is the exhaustion of profound inauthenticity. Your conscious mind is driving the car in one direction, while your soul is pulling with all its might in another. You are a house divided against itself, and that internal friction burns through your life force, leaving you feeling hollow, listless, and chronically tired. Imagine a story. A young man is born the rightful heir to a vast and beautiful kingdom. This kingdom represents the full potential of his self, but he is terrified of the responsibility. He fears he will not be a good king. So, he refuses to claim his throne. He leaves the crown to gather dust in the castle, and instead disguises himself as a commoner. He wanders the marketplaces, taking on odd jobs, living a small, safe, anonymous life. Yet every day, he is exhausted. He feels a deep, aching sense that something is profoundly wrong. He sees the kingdom falling into disrepair and feels a strange guilt he can't name. The exhaustion he feels is not from his menial work. It is the crushing weight of his abdicated responsibility. It is the energy drain of refusing to claim his own inheritance. So, how do we begin to claim our inheritance and stop this psychic hemorrhage? The Jungian solution is to learn to listen to the call of the self. This is the art of paying attention to the signals from your unconscious. It's looking at your dreams not as random noise, but as letters from the deep. It's noticing synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences that seem to point you in a certain direction. It's honoring those deep feelings of longing or discontent, not as problems to be medicated away, but as crucial guidance from the core of your being. And once you begin to hear the call, you must summon the courage to sacrifice. This is a terrifying word for the pure eternus, the eternal youth. But in this context, sacrifice does not mean giving up something wonderful. It means sacrificing the fantasy of infinite potential in order to live one concrete, real life. You must sacrifice the fantasy of being a world-famous novelist, a rock star, and a brain surgeon in order to actually sit down and write one real page, learn one real chord, or pass one real exam. It is the act of choosing and committing. This act, while daunting, is what finally focuses your psychic energy. Like a magnifying glass focusing sunlight into a single, powerful point, a committed life can burn with meaning and purpose. This is the very essence of individuation. It is the journey of the ego relinquishing its absolute control and entering into a partnership with the greater self. It is the young heir finally returning to the castle, picking up the dusty crown, and accepting the burden and the glory of his own life. This alignment between who you are and who you were meant to be is the ultimate source of psychic vitality. It doesn't mean life gets easier, but it means your struggles have meaning. And a meaningful struggle energizes the soul, while a meaningless life, no matter how comfortable, will always drain it. We have journeyed deep into the psyche and illuminated 3 hidden sources of our most profound exhaustion. We found the energy leak in the rigid persona, the mask we mistake for our true face. We found it in the constant battle to repress and project our shadow, the disowned parts of our own vitality. And we found it in the quiet despair of the unclaimed inheritance, the resistance to the call of our deepest self. These may seem like 3 separate problems, but they are simply 3 stages of a single, magnificent journey, the journey inward. They represent the friction between the part of us we show the world, the part of us we hide from ourselves, and the totality of who we are meant to become. If there's a single, unifying theme to this exploration, it is this: all chronic psychic exhaustion stems from a state of internal division. The solution, in every case, is not to try harder or to do more, but to cultivate integration and wholeness. It is the work of bringing all the disparate parts of yourself into a conscious and compassionate relationship. It is the courage to be authentic behind the mask, the compassion to embrace your own darkness, and the commitment to live out your unique potential. This inner work is not a chore to be added to your to-do list. It is the most vital and meaningful adventure a human being can undertake. The energy you will reclaim from this journey is not just a fuel for greater productivity. It is a fundamentally different kind of energy. It is the quiet, steady power of a life lived in alignment. It is the vitality that comes from wholeness. So, as we conclude, I leave you with this thought. The profound energy you seek is not waiting for you in a future accomplishment, a change of circumstance, or the approval of others. It is here, now, waiting to be unlocked. It is in the present courage to become who you truly are.